So let's get started. We're going to kick things off with the panel discussion, as I mentioned, to talk about the state of cold emailing in 2023, trending tactics, best practices, common mistakes, and more. First off, I'd like to introduce our speakers who are all here. Marcus A. Chan, sales coach, author, 3 times Salesforce top sales influencer, and LinkedIn top voice. Nick Persico, director of sales and marketing at Close. And Eric Nowoslawski, who's in charge of growth at Clay. He's also founder of Growth Engine X, outbound strategist, and startup advisor. So, hey guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us today.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Likewise.
All right. So let's start off. We have a few kind of topics that we think are most interesting, just based on just the general trends that we're seeing, and frankly, our direct conversations with customers and partners. So let's start with just a general topic. Are cold emails still effective / relevant in 2023? Marcus, let's start with you.
Sure. Awesome. First off, I'm excited to be here. All right. And I always laugh when someone asks me, hey, do cold emails still work? Do cold calls still work? The truth is most of those strategies do work if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then it's not going to work. Right. So that's just the reality of it. I think especially in today's time, buyers are more skeptical than ever. They're busier than ever. They have less time than ever. Which means lazy emails, frankly, won't cut it. I find, generally speaking, when you stick to solid, proven email fundamentals that kind of stay in style regardless, those are always going to work. That's doing stuff like, making sure it's personalized to them, actually relevant to them. Simple subject lines, simple short copy that's written at like, a 5th grade level or lower. Not just saying book a meeting right here. It's asking for interest and relatively short, less than 100 words. Generally speaking, those are going to work really well if you do a good job with those type of fundamentals. So they are so effective if you do it right.
All right, thanks, Nick. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, same. I'll echo the same. I think if you think about the context of which you're sending cold email, really matters. Let's use the most common example, which is an actual salesperson, whether it be a business development rep or sales development rep, BDR, SDR. I think too often I get emails in my own inbox going directly for what they want, which is going for scheduling a call when they haven't even asked me what I care about or if this is relevant to me, or they haven't provided any value to me. The cold emails that I respond to, and think about your own email inboxes, are the ones where they provide me actual value. And in a SaaS context, in an industry context, that's usually, do they provide me with some report or data or analysis that is unique sort of intellectual property or analysis or data that company has about that particular industry. If you send me something like that, like here is the state of real estate in this particular area, and I can go in and I can look at the data and I can be better at my job as a result of knowing that information that you gave me, I'm going to give you a call. Maybe not on the first, email. It's going to take a few. So you have to do it in sequence and follow up over time. But that to me is what is most effective. And that's something that I think will always work regardless of how much noise is coming in. If you just really focus on providing value first, and then people will reward you with their time in return, and just make that transaction very genuine and purposeful.
Exactly. So yeah, as always, what's in it for me, the receiver of this communication? Eric, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we wouldn't be here if we didn't think that it was effective in 2023. The only thing that I would just add on to what, because I definitely agree. The only thing I would add on is it also just really depends on your offer. We've had offers that we send one sentence on behalf of our clients, and we don't send anything else. It's just that one sentence, and it works because they're in need. They have a need. We didn't have to personalize. We didn't have to do anything crazy, but they need what we got. if you're like one industry, I've never been able to get this work. And if Nick and Marcus, if you have been able to get this work, would love to hear how. Like cybersecurity, we've done crazy stuff in cybersecurity. Like I was pulling the open port on their website and then relating that to another company that recently got a hack through that open port, and then we would send them a guide on how to close that port. I didn't even want a meeting with them. I just wanted to some sign of life, and nobody cared. Like it just didn't work. So I think yes, absolutely it works, but it really comes down to what are you selling? Like cybersecurity, you need like Google ads instead of cold email, because it's just like a time thing, not really like an email thing.
Yeah, I think also too, when you go into that specific industry, they're also highly skeptical, right? Given the nature they're already in, given the nature of the work, they're really skeptical. And I think when you bolt on the other components that you gentlemen also mentioned as well, there's a consistency and persistency piece that's really important too, right? In the perfect world, we all wish we could craft the perfect one cold email. They immediately say, that's amazing. You have 100% response rate. They book the meeting. They close on the first call. That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing, right? Sales would be really easy, and also would not pay as much as it would if that was the case.
Yeah,
but the reality is that level of persistency and consistency and being in them omni-channel is so critical as well. Exactly your example, cybersecurity. With that first email, maybe it's a couple different emails. Then you also call, and then you also like hit them also with Google ads as well, maybe some retargeting. And before you know, they're like, now let's have a conversation now.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that. Speaking of templates, here at Reply, we get this question probably daily, which is, hey, can you give me a good performing cold email so that I don't have to deal with that, which is unfortunately to us. I wish I could say here it is, just go and send it, but it's never the case. So it's always, how is it relevant to your specific audience? How is it relevant to what you're selling? And so personalization is key as always. All right, and a bit of a kind of next part to that question. If you have seen any changes, and if not, that's completely okay. But are you guys seeing any notable trends and shifts in how cold emails are being received and responded to? And we're not yet talking about, because a big topic for around cold email and around sales is AI, and we have a whole section about that later on. But in regards to how people react, how people respond to, does that keep falling, growing, especially around the COVID time and after COVID? Have you seen any changes in the buyer behavior, or not necessarily buyers, but those who are receiving those cold emails?
Who's first?
Well, I'll say, generally speaking, I think we see across the board. I work with a lot of sales reps and a lot of teams across the board, and generally speaking, it's like they're not like, they might still have pretty good open rates. Reply rates have gone down a little bit. Response rates have gone down. Book meetings have gone down. And it's definitely the nature of the market as well, where if funds are tighter and they're entering into a recession, whatever you want to call it, when they feel like it's not available, they might be less open to respond to the first couple of emails, right? And that's where it's definitely key to be persistent and to consistently follow them and put them into a sequence and hit them in different channels to actually get them to actually respond and actually book a meeting. And I think also what I see as well, this is a combination of the nature of the situation. There's a lot of pressure from sales leaders to the sales teams to crank the activity up. And reality is, as they continue to crank the activity up, what's going to naturally happen is personalization will go down, the level of research will go down, so you get more of these templated responses. So it's kind of like the harder you push the activity button on the teams, they'll crank the activity up, but it comes at the cost of poorly crafted emails and sequences, which means less results. It's almost like it's like a circular effect, and it gets worse and worse. And then of course buyers get more upset, get more frustrated. So you have to find a good balance right there. And it's hard because I think as a sales professional, you obviously want to do your job, you want to perform and book meetings and close deals, but you also you have to deal with the pressures of an organization that wants you to hit certain KPIs, because they might fire you if you don't have those KPIs too.
That's a very good point. Actually, any other thoughts, guys, on the, I would say, the trends, if you're noticing them at all, or
The
is
biggest
that, has
thing,
that been?
yeah, the biggest thing that we're still noticing is I call it outrunning the bear, which I mean is not new, but where, when I first started in sales development, I don't even think I cold emailed with names, because I bought just a garbage list with no names on it. And I just had emails and I was saying, hey there. And I still booked meetings. Like, it was crazy. Right. And like, you think about trying to do that today, not going to happen. And so, I just see the level of of the email that somebody would respond to is just, even if they need what you have, it looks like a spam email, they're just not even going to respond, because they just don't even want to respond to it. So I just see like the level of outrunning the bear and what everybody else is doing is just getting harder and harder.
Yeah. By the way, that's a very good point. Even based on our experience, speaking of a little bit better personalization over time. I don't know, maybe that's related to our growth stages as an outreach company, but we have seen a lot more in the we've been around for about 7 years, but in the beginning we've seen a lot more of those contacts that only had a list of emails, and they had they had no choice, and they had to go with hi there. And I haven't even thought about it until you just brought it up, which is today's is kind of like a sign of either a bad system or just bad lead generation practice, to not go with at least those very basics. So I was just curious,
Is it even good enough anymore? Right. In some
Absolutely.
industries, just hey first name is just not even going to cut it.
Yeah, you have to be a lot smarter than that, which leads to my next question. What are maybe some of the best practices aside from, or maybe not aside from better personalization, but what that personalization should look like for a compelling cold email that would stand out from the crowd? And we've covered a bit of that already, which is you have to be personalized, but what are the best ways to achieve that, maybe?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I think I think many people define personalization in different ways, right? Because I get these cold emails, and I'm sure you all get these type of cold emails, which is like, hey Marcus, saw you went to University of Oregon. Anyways, let's jump on a call. I'm like, that's not personalization. That's you looking at my LinkedIn profile for 3 seconds and you're saying, yeah, you're like, exactly right. I'm like, what are you doing, right? So when you think about personalization, it also has to make sense and be relevant to the rest of the flow of the email as well. And that's where I see a lot of people miss the boat, where like they try to drop some line personalization. It doesn't actually make sense. So for example, like if someone was cold emailing me, I saw a really good cold email come through the other day, and they're like, hey Marcus, I got your new book, your Wall Street Journal best-selling book. It was absolutely incredible. I love this, and this. Oh, I'm like, wow, this guy actually took the time to actually get the book, read the book. And he's like, hey, like in order to grow your business, which I heard about your business on this page here, got a couple ideas on X, Y, and Z. Would you be open for conversation? I'm like, that's pretty good. Like it was clearly personalized. He connected the personalization to what his little value proposition was, which I thought was really, really valuable. So I think it's really key. And I find, generally speaking, like, especially when you're selling into the enterprise, the whole email has to be basically personalized. Like it's taking that level of time to actually they feel it's like, this is made for me. They get me. And when you're able to do that, that's where it's going to hit home in a whole new way, right? A couple other points I think is also relevant to bring up as well. I think when you incorporate you have to find a balance. You don't want to try too hard, but if you can incorporate humor in your emails, that's really powerful. Like it's such a good tension breaker. If you can do it in like a way that makes sense, it's not weird or kind of cringy. It's kind of like makes sense. And or the value piece. Like when in doubt, I think value is one of the best plays to do when you can provide something that person, the receiver, will say, wow, this report, this video, this training, this X will actually help me be better at my job. If you can incorporate those type of things, you're going to have a higher likelihood of actually being able to have them to respond. And if you were consistent, persistent with it, you combine all those elements over time, eventually you'll probably be able to book that meeting.
Hey, quick follow-up question before I give you guys a word, but one quick follow-up question, because you brought up an example that we had to kind of deal with a similar inbound email recently that was super personalized. So my question to you is, so let's just theoretically, let's imagine, Marcus, that that email that you got saying, hey, I read your book, you said this and this, and I have thoughts on this and this. So if I were to tell you that that was still automated, so the person didn't read the book, but they went so far as to find hyper personalization outreach solutions, will you still appreciate that if you knew that, hey, this is probably automated, but through some super advanced stuff?
I think if I can't tell it's automated, I frankly don't care how to put it together, right? Whether they went and like took my book, transcribed it, ran it through ChatGPT, got a summary of the 5 bullet points, and told them. As long as I don't really care how they got about it, but like I'm like, wow, this person gets me. Ultimately, I don't think people really care about like how you got that information. As long as they're like, wow, this is like they're speaking what's in my mind. Like they're passing what I call the whisper test, which is like the whisper test is like I always imagine your cold prospect is at an anniversary dinner with their spouse. It's a really romantic, expensive dinner, and they're in this, like, a nice restaurant, and you come up to them, they don't know who you are, and you whisper in their ear, "Hey, I know all about you." And it would say, "I know you have pain point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know you want these specific things, and I have a solution for you." They're like, "Whoa, tell me more," and they rush away from their spouse. Right? That's a level of depth you want to think about when you're writing emails, you're doing outreach. And it's obviously hard to get to that point, but whether they use automation or whatever to get to that point, to me, it's not really relevant. I'm just like, whoa, they get me. They really get me. And that makes me want to be more open to responding. And if I don't respond, if they hit me up again with something similar, and over time, I'll probably like, okay, timing's right. Let me respond to this person. This person actually gets me.
Got it. Guys, Nick, Eric, any thoughts on best practices?
Yeah, I'll say 2 things. I think first, everybody focuses all of their attention on the first email, when this is the email that is actually responded to the least, right? So why is everybody spending all their time on email 1 that never gets responded to, or that has the smallest percentage? You should focus all of your time on email 3 or LinkedIn message 2 or call number 2. Like, focus on what the content is later in your sequence. Those are always seem to be afterthoughts for people. And that's when I, as a buyer, generally when I get cold emails, is when I'm the most interested, is when somebody sends me message 4 or 5. I'm like, okay, great, they're persistent, but the content falls flat or immediately just tells me something that it's like, this is not a fit for me. This doesn't make sense for me. Delete, and then I'll never respond to anything again, because I've already decided in my mind that this is irrelevant to me, or this is not going to bring me value. So focus on sort of the whole package and spend more of your time in sort of the touch 4, 5, 6, 7, not so much, touch 1 or 2, or at least give equal time. At least let's start there. And then 2, you have to give salespeople help today. You can't just fully rely on the salesperson to bring in the scheduled calls and bring in the closed deals on their own. That's like looking for a unicorn. And you may have some on your team, or you may find one, and that's great. But you have to do sort of, if to use a basketball analogy, you have to do a full court press. So if you think about the emails you receive every day, there's sort of 2 reasons for replying. 1, I perceive the person emailing me as my peer or a person of authority, a founder of a company, somebody of an equal level to me. So this is somebody that I want to talk with and interact with, just like on a social basis, kind of almost independent of if I'm going to buy their product or not. Like, so when another founder emails me and they email me something relevant, I'm more likely to respond, right? That's the one reason why you reply. The other reason is the perceived stature of the company that's emailing me, right? If a company emails me, like let's use like a finance example, right? Because I am getting a bunch of emails from them right now. Sorry to put them on blast. Is Brex, right? I get a ton of emails and touches and everything from Brex, but they're pretty good, and they do a good job of personalization. But the reason why I perceive them is because I've seen this brand everywhere. They are doing a full court press on me and all the channels that I'm in, Twitter, LinkedIn, retargeting, even billboards, they're doing the whole thing. So that sales rep is getting that push from that whole company, that whole brand, to where they're likely to get responses. So then the actual messaging of that salesperson is less of a need to be perfect as opposed to what they're doing. So when you look at, put all of that sort of into a nice, neat package, is think about who is sending the email, like what is the persona that you're using. If you're using the founder, then rely on that, or somebody of, some industry knowledgeable person. Or two, make sure you're doing all the things to help your salespeople stand out, because the company, they've heard of the company before, they've seen you in other places, and then they're more likely to respond. So that would be the two things that I would focus on.
Yeah, and I think like a resounding theme that we all have is like reaching out with value, right? And sometimes we'll work with clients, or we'll work with some of the Clay users, and we say, you want to reach out with value, and then they say, great, I'm going to invite them to my webinar. I'm like, okay, no, like that you might think that it's valuable, but like they do not perceive it as valuable. So also drawing a line of what is actually legitimately truly valuable to the prospect, and not just what you think is valuable and is just obviously like a self-serving, it's not even a Trojan horse because you can't even get it through the gate, but truly doing things that are valuable. So like I have a theory that I'm working on right now, that I actually believe that there is such thing as a perfect cold email, where it can't get much better than what you're sending. And what I mean by that is, so in our industry, maybe not close because you guys are doing the CRM stuff, but for Marcus and I, if I were to send somebody a cold email and I said, hey, saw you're in this industry and you're selling to these kinds of people, I actually already ran a campaign for you and I got you 5 leads. They're in this spreadsheet right here. Here's their email addresses. Here's what I said to them, and here's what they responded with. If 5 leads isn't enough for you, would you want to talk about how we could get you more? And so we have verticals that we just know we can print meetings for, and we just run this campaign for them. There's no flashy stuff. There's no, like, literally we're just saying that, and I guess we are programmatically creating Google Sheets. I guess that's the flashy part. So they're not all like going to the same Google Sheet, but for them, that we get crazy book meetings off of that, because they're like, oh my God, you already got me 5 leads. And I'm like, yep, we have a system. We already know that this works. Like, you could totally steal this system, by the way, as well, and like never talk to me, and you could just use the copywriting that we're using, and you could totally get away with it. And I mean, I would be very hard pressed to say in our industry of outbound consulting, in order to get a meeting with a client, I can't think of a whole lot of like scaled ways that you could send a better email than that. And so I think it always comes down to, how can you provide that person as much value as possible? Where, like, I have another company that we're running a campaign for, that they help with tech stack analysis and redundancies. And we're combing through all of their past job posts and all of their new job posts, and then making like a matrix of like all of the redundant technologies they have, and then delivering that to them, and then saying, hey, you have all of these redundant technologies. Like, you've got 4 databases and like 3, I don't even know, like, I'm like out of databases. I'm like, that's too technical. I'm like already out of it. And we're sending that as the email. And then I guess maybe I'm the odd one out here, but we send these types of emails, and all of our responses come from email 1. And we still carry the data through all of the other emails, but we get most of our responses off of email 1. We send like 850,000 cold emails a month. And like, out of all of the sequences, except for like 2, the positive responses are the highest on email 1. And it's because we're taking such like how can I bring the value of my product to the person for free in this email?
See, what I love about this is, and that's amazing, because when you think about it, when you put yourself in the buyer's shoes, the biggest risk I have is like uncertainty. Will this even work for me, even if it's cold email? But the level of value you're providing at that moment, like let's say that 5 leads, let's say for simple math, each is worth $100K. That's $500K in value in potential pipeline you just deliver for them in a first cold email, right? That's value. And that's where it's a level of research and preparation work that allows you to have greater throughput on your whole process. So I love that. That's a
Oh,
perfect
absolutely.
example.
Which I will admit, these leads are not worth 100K, but yeah, like,
I know. But
absolutely.
you get my
Yeah,
point. Like, let's say 50K, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping our business development is listening right now, because Eric, we're definitely stealing this, or at least we're not a service as you know, a service company, but we're kind of adjacent to that. We're still generating leads for people through automation. So no, that's very interesting. We'll see. Like, if I guess the question is how scalable it is for your specific business model, and based on your deal size and all of that. But
of course. Yeah.
as an approach, it sounds very interesting. So I wanted to continue with a few questions from the audience. So, and this, by the way, this was in fact in different words, but my next question in the agenda. So people seem to mostly be interested in basically personalization at scale, but not personalization at scale as we talked about it maybe even 3 years ago. But can you speak to, and this is a question from Tyler in the comments, can you speak to the balance between volume and personalization / customization? And Ben also asked, what are the reasonable KPIs for cold emailing? Balancing the more personalized but fewer versus the larger scale and less personalized. Is there even like a middle ground there?
So
Yeah, I can. Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, I think this depends on who you're talking to, right? Like, I think if you're talking to a leader who's getting driven by the board to increase the KPIs for activity metrics, it becomes a very different response now, because you could definitely go against them and be hyper personalized and be more effective with your emails, which we all know that to be true. But now you might be at a risk of getting in trouble, getting put on a performance plan, or getting people yelling at you because they want you to hit certain KPIs, even if you have better results at the end of the day. Which I've seen some of that, that minutia happen in corporations, and that just happens. Then there's also balance. Like if you're from a rep perspective, like at the end of the day, it's like, hopefully the number one KPI the company's going to focus on is you getting results. Right? So if you're able to personalize at scale, and that could also, and there's different ways to personalize it, right? There's the level of personalization where it's exactly to the point of, here are 5 leads I found for you. That's super personalized, right? But then there's also personalization for it's really relevant pains. And speaking with 50 other SaaS founders on the West Coast, here are the top 3 issues they run into. Oh, okay. And you can be pretty relevant with those as well. That's still personalization too. And you can send more of those emails. So there's a big wide range, but it's hard for me personally to give say you can only send X number of emails, because your situation might be a little bit different. If you're a founder of your own company, you can do whatever you want, right? If you're a rep for a company, you got to play within the rules of the game that's been given to you, so you don't put yourself in a compromising situation.
Yeah, where I come down on this is the scalability part of this, in terms of, sort of the volume of outreach that you can do. I really look at it from a time horizon. Basically, the number of leads that we're going after, we have access to, is equal to some amount of time that you're going to be able to run that campaign. Because what you should always be doing, or this is what I believe and have believed for the last decade, is that you shouldn't do giant email blasts. You should take a small chunk of the list, and it's going to vary for industry and sort of the deal size and all these different things. So I'll let you make that determination. But let's use a simple number of 50 or 100 new emails a day if you're just the salesperson, and you continue to do that. And each time that you send the new batch, you're taking all the learnings from the previous batches and reincorporating that back into it. Because if you just send a giant batch of emails and you accidentally have a spelling error in there, or you mess something up, you've ruined all of those leads for some amount of time, right? And so then you've kind of burned that bridge. So just take tiny steps over time. So that's how I look at the scalability side of it, is not so much a question of how do we get 100,000 emails and then email them tomorrow. No, maybe the total number is 100,000. Then I divide that by the number of business days, and I know that, okay, I can run this campaign for this amount of time. I've gotten this amount of leads to handle the sales team for this amount of time before they need new ones or they need to replenish ones, right? And then on the personalization side, it's really about finding what works for you based off of some of the examples that we gave you earlier. We don't need to relitigate all of that. It's going to be different for everybody, and you really just need to try different things and find what you think works. And you probably have to do some in parallel, and then some will work better than others, and just adjust as you go. It's definitely always more than one thing. And the last part on the KPI part of it, I've always gone by the same mantra of, if your response rate, not open rate, response rate is above 10%, keep doing it, make it better, improve, get to 12, 15%. If it's below 10%, it's dead on arrival. You need to either throw it out or redo it again, or just sort of, stop and then reset again and do that. So that pass fail bar for me, and I tell all customers and clients and everybody, is 10% response rate. And you can define how the response rate works. Probably not the first email, probably after a couple of touches. That's where you're actually doing the percentage of people reached out to versus replies.
I think the single greatest thing that sales reps, sales leaders, and marketing leaders and CEOs can do is to get this question out of their brain and not even think about it. With the onset of how much data we have at our fingertips, I'm going to say data again, because there's so much data at your fingertips. You just need to know where to look for it or how to create it yourself. And then with the onset of AI, I truly believe there is no balance to be had between personalization and scalability. We sent for one customer 180,000 emails over the course of 6 months. Every customer was targeted differently. If they were in one of 3 industries, if their employee headcount was below 10, if they had certain technology on the website, we were looking for clothes. Sorry about that, Nick. We were doing, actually, no, they would work together. It's an integration. No, they would work together, but we would call out clothes. And then if none of those things were true about the prospect, but we knew doing an AI analysis that they were B2B and that they had SDRs on their team who could possibly use the tool, we still reached out to them, but we used like an AI generated message about, hey, if you were to use our tool, this is what it would look like in your perceived sales process based off of their company description. And we did like a whole lot of AI stuff with that. 180,000 contacts. We just looked this up because I was like, oh, I wonder how many emails we've sent. 180,000 contacts went through that campaign. We would send like 2,000 emails a day. We consistently get like 20 to 30 positive responses a day. And there's no SDR in the loop of that. We built that system one time and then we just pushed it forward. And so we use Clay, like candidly, like I work for Clay and I love the product and this is how we do all of these things. But if you have things that that work, and oh, okay, if they're in this industry, we say this. If they're this title, we say this. If this happens, we say this. All of this stuff can be automated. So for anybody who's like, oh, but like maybe it's not possible to like send that many emails and personalize all of them. Yes, it's 100% possible. You need to get your TQ like training hat on, technology quotient training hat on, all of the IQ stuff and the emotional quotient stuff that you did. That was really important. And when you're on the sales call, awesome. But like to run these systems, you really need to upgrade your game. Like, do you know how to use APIs? Do you know how to use webhooks? Do you know how to do web scraping? Like, so that you can scale these systems. I don't think in 2023 there's any kind of balance we have anymore.
Great. Okay, so thanks, guys. Let's move on. There's so much to talk about, but let's maybe discuss some of the mistakes. And I'm not talking about some of the obvious stuff like Marcus brought up. Hey, you went to this school, or my personal favorite is, hey, I found your content so inspiring and insightful. Now let me sell you something. But when we're talking about like those are the very bad, but what are the maybe other mistakes beginning SDRs or salespeople are doing when writing those cold emails? So can you point out something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, and so that people can just note that and not use it in their next cold email?
Not constantly updating the content. I still get cold emails about COVID. Like,
really?
Yeah. Like,
such unprecedented times we're in right now.
yeah. It's scary. It's scary times.
Staying positive.
Yeah. Like, which crisis are they talking about here? We need to be more specific, given everything going on in the world. But yeah, that's the most common mistake that I see, is that they're just using something that was written by someone 6 months ago and never bothered to check to see if they can improve it or make it better. And that's the most common one.
Yeah, I'd say that too templated, too cookie cutter email, which goes right into what exactly you said. They took that sequence that's written by somebody else. Let me just kind of use that. That's probably the first one. The second thing I see is not taking like the AI tech that's available and applying common sense to actually use it, right? So like, for example, I've seen some where clearly I know they went to ChatGPT-4 and said, write me a cold email about this and insert this. And it's like really like, I can tell they took it, copy pasted it, and just threw it into an email. And every volume was the same thing. And they didn't take this time to just, trust, but verify it and make the appropriate tweaks and maybe give additional prompts to improve and enhance so it actually fits a little better. Right. So I think it's definitely a huge pitfall I'm seeing happen more often now. And the third is just not even embracing AI and kind of hoping like, well, I hope my company will teach this to me. I hope someone will just teach it to me. Here's the truth. No one's coming to save you. Like, you have to go and save yourself, whether you are a sales rep, a BDR, a founder. You have to go out there and take control of the situation and learn about AI and get the right tools if you're a founder for your team to be able to utilize this tech, and then show them how to use the tech and how to apply common sense and critical thinking skills so they can prompt it effectively to actually help you improve your response rates and your booking rates.
Yeah, and the biggest mistake I always see, and I think this is so funny, is people will want to do things that if they were on the other side, if they were the recipient, they would not like. Like I literally had a phone call yesterday where somebody was like, okay, Eric, I got a big idea. We have 40,000 leads in HubSpot. 10,000 of them unsubscribe to us. The first people we should go after is our unsubscribe list. And I was like, okay, hold on. Let's like roll this back for a second. Wait. So like out of like all of the people that we could possibly target in the world, you want to go after the unsubscribed people first. And he's like, yeah, well, because like maybe they didn't know what they were unsubscribing to. And I was like, they knew. They really, really knew what they were unsubscribing to. I promise you. And so we talk a lot about how like, because what Nick said, right? Like if you send 100,000 emails, like you won't be able to email those people for a certain amount of time. It's absolutely true. But I always ask people, what's the cold email that you received 2 days ago? And they can't remember. And so it's like, we can absolutely re-talk to people, but if they unsubscribe, we shouldn't talk to them. And so that I think is the most common mistake that I see is like, yeah, like what, like just things that if a company were to do that to you, would you like it? And then they're like, no. I'm like, okay, like we're not doing that.
Well, that's a good example. Like that's poor targeting now. Like, why would you go after them? Like that's like, it's like, there's no fish in that pond. Why are you gonna go in that pond and go fish now?
Yeah. It's like, did you ever see Grant Cardone's like interview with Jordan Belfort? And he was like, zero interest is a level of interest. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So,
actually, no, it's not.
Yeah. So like, it's like, that's the biggest mistake I see. Yeah.
Pretty funny.
Sounds good. All right, so let's try to kill two birds with one stone. I'm gonna try to merge two questions into one because I think that they're related. We have about 7 minutes, so it should be a good time frame for that. So, basically, the question is, what's the future like for salespeople, and what's the future like when we're talking about emerging technologies, tools that are changing or even revolutionizing cold emailing. And feel free, guys, to plug your own tools, because again, we wouldn't invite you if we didn't think you have great solutions. So let's talk about what's the future of cold emailing or cold outreach in general, and how does technology apply to that, and what that technology might look like.
So, oh, go ahead.
I could jump in really quickly here. I mean, it's the way that I see it is the volume is going to continue to go up, not go down. And the filters that people's inboxes will have on them will increase, right? Mainly the email clients that people use or the actual, email service providers. You even see this with, iOS updates, of, opening all the emails. So everybody's open rates are, junk, or to a certain extent. And it seems like others will follow suit. So with those two things that I think are pretty much certain, it's just locking in and continuing to focus on all the things that we talked about today, and just know that it's going to get harder and harder over time, but the value of a response will go up because it is more difficult to get one, right? So these things happen in concert with one another. So I think the future is bright. It's just the rules were changed, the guardrails were changed, and you just have to adapt and continue to adapt over time. But all of us as humans and people working are spending more time in our email inboxes, not less. So that's also true too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've definitely seen a major emergence and rise to the tech advancing, better tools, more advanced tools, other tools like Reply, very cool, right? Just the level of customization you can create with the AI. And we're going to see it improve over time. That's just a reality, right? So it's going to get better and better and better. But the constant is going to be the people operating the tech. So I think the future really going to be is like, as a leader, as a founder, how do you find and hire the right people, pay them the right compensation to properly use the technology to its full extent? And I think about it's kind of like when social selling started getting really big. Today, it's not new at all, but how many still struggle with it, right? Because they're not set up for success. So as these new tools emerge and companies are adding them on and utilize them with great results, if you want to maintain and increase the results in a tougher time for getting responses, then you have to hire the right level of talent, compensate them properly, train them, and set them up to win so they know how to be effective operators of those tools.
Yeah, really agree. I think another thing is that cold email is the future of cold email is that it will become an ad network more than it will be like this outbound strategy. And so let me unpack that a little bit. So I love playing guitar. I use ultimateguitar.com all the time. They have AdSense on the platform. When I first started playing guitar, the only ads that I would ever see was hot singles in my area. And it was not relevant to me at all. I was 12. I couldn't do anything about that. Like, why am I seeing this?
Sure.
Yeah. And so,
what were you Googling back then?
Yeah. And so then now I am on Ultimate Guitar on Saturday night, and I'm getting ads for things to buy in my house, camping gear. I do a lot of bike riding. I do a lot of CrossFit. These are the ads. I think I literally got a rogue ad, like right on the side for like something that I had in my shopping cart. I was like, oh my God, these ads are so freaking good. Yeah. And so I think cold email is going to keep going to this point where like the only reason you're going to be on my email, and you're going to know it's AI generated, like, but I don't think you're going to care, because the only reason you're getting my email is because you qualified for a trigger. There's a specific keyword in your company description that makes you a right fit. You just hired your 8th sales rep, and like between 8 and 10 is when we know that you got this issue. And I'm blasting you right then and there to say, hey, you just hired your 9th sales rep. Usually you need a way bigger upgrade to your CRM or your sales engagement platform, whatever it's going to need when you're like crossing this team boundary, or you just hired a new SDR manager, whatever it might be. You're only going to receive an email because it's relevant to you. And it's going to take somebody who's talented on the back end to build systems like this. But then everyone's going to know everything's AI generated. But at least if it's AI generated, you're like, this is true. We did just bring on an SDR manager. Like, we do need to build up the system. We'll take the meeting. And then I think that's where cold email is headed.
I just hate how I'm a sucker for these effective ads, Eric, as you're describing. It's just ridiculous, as a young dad with certain a level of interest in certain things, like again stuff for backyard. I hate how much useful stuff it shows me because my wallet is not safe.
Yeah,
So
exactly. But it's
absolutely.
like
I would-
finally, like I'm seeing ads that are actually
It's relevant.
for me.
It's
Yes.
relevant for you.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
point. Yeah.
Email's gonna get there. We just need to, like I said, embrace the systems, make the automations, have the
Mhm.
talent behind it. Email's gonna get there.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm being told by our marketing we do have a few more minutes, so we're going to squeeze in. Sorry, guys, squeeze in a few questions from the audience, which I think these are pretty good questions. Is there a perfect amount of time for a campaign to run before moving on to another, even if it's performing? So so the amount of time the campaign should be running before you're kind of comfortable enough measuring its success.
I don't know. I feel like it depends on the industry. What's the product? What's the service? Usually, what we've started doing in the agency is, because I really want to weed out people that I just can't help, and there's no way to know that I can't help them until we start a campaign. What we have noticed though is I ran through all of our customers, and all of the customers that became our best clients, their first campaign right off the rip worked. And all of the customers that drain a lot of our time and our energy because we have to keep redoing the copy and we have to keep redoing the strategy and we have to keep redoing everything. We could try 2, 3, 4 things before we find something that works. And then sometimes nothing ever works. And we try really, really sophisticated things. So what we're doing now is we'll send, we call them flight tests, where we're like, look, if this works, you should be able to get a positive response after 1,000 emails, and then we're gonna take it forward and then keep optimizing your campaign from there. So we have these templates that they pick from, and then we send out 1,000 emails. So we use 1,000 as possibly a test, but if you're an SDR leader or you're working at a company and you got to figure this out, you don't have my option where I'm I just won't take you as a customer. Then I would say 1,000 to 2,000 contacts, as long as your TAM is big enough to handle that. You've got over 40,000 people in your TAM or something. 1,000 to 2,000 contacts is kind of where I'd be if you're not getting positive responses, you need to go in another direction. But yesterday I got a Slack message from somebody who sent 100 emails, and he said he didn't book meetings, and he was mad at my YouTube video because of that. And I was no, you got to send more emails. That's totally fine. So yeah, I guess I would call it that number.
Yeah, I think it's tricky in the sense that, because Eric, you're spot on. There's so many factors outside of it, right? Because think about some of the things we mentioned before, like what's the marketing environment that's been curated for that prospect? So like is there a really good social media presence? Are there retargeting ads? Are there Google ads? Have you done keyword ads, etc.? So you have different things that can also juice it, and then you also add in, is the rep good at omni-channel? Are they making calls as well? Are they also hitting them up on LinkedIn or Twitter or Threads or wherever they're at? Are they engaging around? So there's different things that can really enhance and improve it. And what if that rep has a low, who's not very active on social media versus one who has a really good brand on social media? So you can see, obviously, a rep who's got a great brand on social media, if they're engaging with that prospect, they're probably going to have better responses as a result too, just because of it. So there's many factors you have to incorporate, and I don't think any answers are really binary yes or no. There's ranges to it. There's definitely ranges to it. So you have to make the best decision for your own business with those things in mind.
And maybe to rephrase this question, Nick, do you have any thoughts personally? When's your kind of what's your point when you just stop the campaign? It's not worth iterating. It's not worth changing anything. It simply doesn't work. So what are your personal boundaries there for campaign performance?
Yeah, personally is more of a reflection of the size and scale that Close has reached, right? At a little over a decade into this, we think of our business in terms of quarters. We live quarter to quarter now, right? So when we look at a campaign, the amount of resources going into it, and like Marcus is talking about, it's omni-channel. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it's sort of like a quarterly thing, and then halfway through the quarter we check to make sure what course corrections do we need to make, or is it just so bad we should just stop? And that's sort of the stopgap to decide if we're going to go with this for the rest of the quarter or make any adjustments halfway through. For startups, the opposite is true. You live day to day, so you should look at this on a weekly basis, and all of that, and then in between is the monthly folks where that lives too. So it's like what Eric and Marcus are talking about. I just think purpose the duration of time to the duration of time that you're living in as a business. Startups are, you live and die by the day, and in our world, we live and die by the quarter. And you'll find where you should live, and you'll adjust based off of that.
I think one thing that
sorry,
really quick, and I think I don't want to miss this point, is the sense of you have to know your data. What are your metrics showing you, right? And how are you solving for that problem? And what I mean by that is, let's just say if you fired off 20,000 emails and you're not booking any meetings, you might be like, oh, that's a bad sequence. But then what if you're looking like, oh, actually the open rate's 0%. So you actually have a deliverability issue. So the issue may not be necessarily the sequence that you wrote or the template. It might be a deliverability issue. So that's why knowing your metrics is so key. So you can identify what the constraint is in your sales process, whether it's top of funnel or any part of the process, and then you focus on optimizing for that. You solve for that problem. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Oh yeah, the only thing for startups who are like, when should we deviate? Another hard rule, and this is kind of funny, but I think it should be out there. A hard rule that we have is if we're trying something new and somebody curses at us, if anybody sends any kind of curse in an email, whether it's the first 100 emails or we get to the 1,000th one and we even got positive responses first, we kill the whole thing. Because on a good performing campaign, nobody should really. Now, if you send 5,000 and there's that one person who curses at you, then we ignore that. But if we're trying something new, we just kill it immediately, because then it's okay, wait, we're totally getting this wrong. Technically, what you should be getting is people saying, hey, not interested. Not at this time, or I don't handle this or anything like that. If you're targeting super wrong, you'll start getting curse words, and that's when we just kill everything.
Interesting. All right, guys, thank you very much. We're going to be wrapping up. Wanted to again thank all of the speakers. Everyone listening, please go and check. Obviously, Clay. Check Marcus's book. He's got his URL on the screen. Again, amazing session. I wish, we should probably do maybe 2 hours of these discussions, because at least personally for me, this is extremely valuable. But again, thank you very much, guys. And I look forward to doing more sessions with you.
Thanks so much. See everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.